Hi there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Market. I was having a discussion with patrons on Discord when I came across some information about a Lorcana reprint and then checked distributors, and lo and behold, yes, there is a massive Lorcana reprint. So I did a Patreon post about it. That's one of the things I do offer my patrons. I try to give some heads up and some market insight, kind of up to date info so they can actually use that information and make purchases accordingly. And I thought this would make a pretty good YouTube video again. So I apologize if you're not really into Lorcana Market. However, I think this is something that actually pertains to Magic the Gathering and other TCGs. So hopefully you find this discussion useful. So Lorcana, let's talk about it. So Lorcana the past couple weeks has been doing quite well. I was worried about Lorcana because each set release, it seems to be worse and worse and worse. We had the first set release, which of course the speculators and the scalpers bought it up. There was just huge hype surrounding Lorcana, and then there was just not enough supply to go around. So it caused more printing in the second set, which then ended up absorbing pretty well. I think that if we were going to talk about any set that did it right, it was Floodborne. Unfortunately, with the following releases, they got worse and worse. It seems like there's been a 10%, 10 to 50% decrease in the supply to demand ratio. And now we're in Ursula's Return, which is actually not making good returns. In fact, it's below distributor cost now on TCG players, so stores are losing money on Ursula's Return. So I'm going to go over what I posted on Patreon, then I'm going to give you my analysis on Lorcana. It's not as doom and gloom. I've kind of calmed myself down. So I'm one of those, if you're into personality theory, I have this ENFP personality type, which just loves to look at, possibilities. So one idea leads to another idea. And unfortunately, what that ends up doing sometimes, you get in this like doom and gloom, like, oh no, the sky is falling because this is going to be too much. They can't handle it. And you just have to talk it out, write it out, look at the actual data, and then come to a better conclusion. So I've calmed down a little bit for Lorcana. I do think that the game has more legs. It is a utility-driven game, but there's also a huge collectible aspect to it, so I do like it over other games. I don't think that it is going anywhere anytime soon, and the numbers over this last weekend with the players that are playing in these regionals are very, very good. And in fact, even locally with single sales, I hadn't seen Lorcana move in a long time. We had people actually picking up cards for these tournaments. So there's good, there's bad, and there's ugly with Lorcana. So let me go ahead and give you some insight of what I wrote on Patreon as well as some of the discussion here. So I said, howdy folks, I wanted to give an update about Lorcana. Shimmering Skies is shipping to me on Wednesday. So one of the things they do offer my patrons, you can order directly from me. It's really helps the store out. It's basically a little bit of backstory of why I shifted over to more a Patreon subscription service model is back in 2018 when we weren't allowed to make any sort of margins on Magic the Gathering, and so we were struggling at our store. We live in a region that does like to shop online, and so we'd have just so many customers that would pass from us and just choose to get it online. That was a lot cheaper than from us, and I just became frustrated at that point and said, to hell with it. I'm going to offer at cost with this subscription. So anyway, I have this Patreon where I sell at cost to patrons. You are more than welcome to look at it if it's a good fit. If not, I think that you can still find this information helpful here. So anyway, I was checking over the orders, noticed that Lorcana was back in stock for the last 3 sets at distribution level. Now this is interesting because first chapter is what needs a reprint. The rest of them, we actually go over to TCG Player. It's first chapter here. That is the market price, $226. These are supposed to be $100 boxes. That's above that 40%, 60% markup. You want to stay within that range within most retail space. And so this is making the game for these particular cards a little inaccessible. And currently, I think that Lorcana does reprint a few cards, correct me if I'm wrong, like in sets, but the vast majority of cards are still contained within their sets. There hasn't even been like a reprint set announced. So this is actually keeping the game back a little bit by not having the first chapter cards available. Meanwhile, their other sets are really struggling. If you can see that Shimmering Skies, Ursula's Return, Inklands are in that range that I don't think is very profitable for stores to be selling online after all the fees and after the shipping and all the headache. It's very, very minuscule amount of margins. Now, if you go on to the Floodborne box, that's where I think you should see a box. Like, they've done a good job with Floodborne. Again, it was the second set there is, I'll go down why I think this reprint is very concerning, though, because there is a domino effect when you do reprint things. What ends up happening is speculative supply. People that have scalped and speculated this product, they also begin to panic and they throw all of the inventory back on the market, and you see the market crash. A good example of this was what happened to Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood, it was just eaten up by so many people buying the first editions and this massive hype that there's going to be Black Lotus prices contained in this new hot game, and it was mainly speculatively driven. And then when the the chips kind of fell where they were, that people realized, okay, people aren't playing the game as much as anticipated, or wasn't growing as quick as people thought. And I cautioned people back then, there should not be Black Lotus or Magic the Gathering type speculation on a brand new game. Then, of course, what we saw is now we haven't even seen the end of that speculative supply come back into Flesh and Blood. I didn't make an entire video on Flesh and Blood, like Welcome to Wraith, all the way up to Tales of Aria era, of the it's a good warning sign to other card games to not follow the same route as Flesh and Blood did. So if we go back to my post here, so I noticed that Lorcana was back in stock for the last 3 sets at distribution level. This is concerning because Ursula's and Inklands continue to struggle going above distribution price on the secondary market. Unfortunately, I do not believe that the market can handle a reprint right now, especially simultaneously to a new release. I would be extremely cautious with Lorcana. Now, this is something that I'm also very critical of. There is a new set, as you can see, Shimmering Skies is being released. Typically, you don't want to compete with your own new products when you release a product. So having a reprint wave at the same time as a new release, I think is just bad in general. I think you should wait a couple weeks before, and people are going to be picking up cards from these other sets. I understand maybe you want it at this distribution level, allow stores to actually restock, but that's more of a trickle type thing. And what I've seen with the numbers of this reprint, it's not a trickle. These are major restocks at the distribution level. So before I get any hate from players, I just want to emphasize Lorcana was marketed as a collectible card game. This is important to the confidence of the game because it requires navigating and walking a tightrope with meeting demand without oversaturating the market with supply. I think this actually hurts the game in the long run, as it will disincentivize stores from holding on to product long term in fears that it will crash with reprint. This actually makes it less accessible in the future, not more. And I try to beat this idea home because this is what happens in so many TCGs. You see the hype, you see the speculation, you see the players demand that, oh, just print it, it's not accessible. You see the company try to think that they're doing this like, oh yeah, this is what the players want, we're doing it, but they're greed driven at this point. They print in to that speculative demand. It crashes the market, the speculative product comes back in the market, and then it leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth. Now no one wants to touch the product, and no one wants to promote it, no one wants to play it. People that purchased at a higher price feel like they're cheated, and it's just bad. I understand the frustration with scalpers and speculators. However, you have to accept that if things are popular, there inevitably will be this activity. The solution is not overprinting, as it will cause a domino effect the other way, and players will now feel cheated and frustrated they overpaid for original purchases, which leads to less product being bought in the long run. Again, this is why, like, the 2020 to 2024 era of Magic the Gathering, 2023 era of Magic the Gathering was so frustrating with Wizards of the Coast. They was just trying to push the envelope of how much they could actually print into speculative demand because, I don't know, maybe they didn't care. I'm not exactly sure what happened at the WotC level because you had to see the writing on the wall that this was just pure speculation at this point and could not justify with the numbers they had playing the game. But, now we're seeing that domino effect come back in Magic the Gathering, and it's going to affect the market for quite some time. Anyway, where was I with this? So I don't understand, but it also doesn't surprise me that in 2024, a company like Ravensburger that has destroyed games in the past with the exact starve then dump philosophy, Villainous was exactly handled this way. Now, again, Villainous was a tiny board game. However, this is what Ravensburger did with it. It became popular, and they started making like these collector's editions that were only available at select Disneyland locations and select stores, and then they're like, oh, you know what, we'll just throw it out in mass market. And by the end of Villainous, you could pick up Villainesses for like $5. Like, that board game just got absolutely crushed. Stores could not make money on it. Stores were throwing it on the clearance racks all over. And it's just at that point now, does people really care too much? I mean, Villainous has just gone crazy. They've done like Marvel, they've done Star Wars, Did I see somewhere they did like did they do a wrestling one with villainous? I swear something like was coming down the line with that. But anyway, I digress. So basically, I'm establishing that Ravensburger is a company that's done this in the past, and it's really, really tough to get behind it. It was a lot of the reluctancy I had with Lorcana to begin with was who was behind this game, Ravensburger. That always left like a bad taste in my mouth because of being burned in the past with other games they'd created. I may be proven wrong, and this reprint will end up stimulating the game. However, the data does not back this up. There's still plenty of availability in the secondary market at near distributor cost for these products. What is more concerning is things like that were definitely supposed to be collectible, like gift sets and troves, also appear to be reprinted. Now, this is the warning sign that I have the most, because those are, I don't think for utility's sake, I don't think for establishing like the health of the game long term, you need to care about reprinting those supplemental products that have chase cards, or in this case, like a lot of the troves will have, or the gift editions will have the specialty printings of the cards. In my opinion, those are the type of things that should always be one and done. It will establish a basis for collectability. It will cause that temporary FOMO that you do want, which is healthy for a game, knowing that, okay, this is the only time to get in. If things get scalped and speculated, in the long run, it doesn't matter that much because the utility aspect of the game is still accessible. I understand having a reprint policy to make sure that there's enough product to meet utility demand, but collectibles need to be collectible. Otherwise, they lose their purpose. And that is why I'm most disappointed about the troves, the gift sets, and that seem to be on this reprinting policy of Ravensburger. This is the same problem I have with Villainous. It was like this was supposed to be collectible, now it's into mass markets. Again, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, the sky is falling, and I admit that Lorcana is still robust and popular, but recent decisions like removing Pixelborn, Pixelborn was kind of like MTGO, but it was fan-based. In my opinion, Pixelborn is the whole reason why Lorcana was successful to begin with, because people were already toying around and proving that the game was actually fun. And by the time that Lorcana released, because of Pixelborn, there had been people that had already promoted the game so much that it was ready to go at the local game store level. There was so much hype. There's already people who know how to play the game and teach the game. And Pixel, I think that you have to, like, if I was Lorcana, I'd be rewarding Pixelborn. I wouldn't be trying to punish it, or at least trying to buy it out, because it was a platform that was really well run and fan driven, which is exactly what you want in a kind of a grassroots community. So anyway, with an alternative, and now the scheduling of a massive reprint wave at the same time really should be more than a bit concerning. So lastly, curious about pricing. So the things that I saw that were reprinted on the distribution level, again, we did not see a lot of the items that I think possibly could have had a reprint in the market, could have accepted. Like, it was backwards of what I thought should have been reprinted. So Ursula's Return, Troves, Quest, and booster boxes, 95, 35, and 40 in that order. And the Inklands also got the booster box, gift sets, and Illuminator Troves also were reprinted. Floodborn, this one was kind of weird because I think just this distributor's being a little bit greedy with it because they do see the price difference of Floodborn comparatively to the other two sets that are now below distributor cost or around distributor cost, is about $100. So that is where right now stores are going to be able to get in from low 80s. Like when I quote prices, that's all included. That's the fees. That's there's a lot of fees, the PayPal fees, things like that I include in the price, so people aren't tacking on 2% here, 3% there. So anyway, stores are getting this out the door for around $91, $92 a piece, depending on the distributor they're using for these booster boxes. So anyway, let's talk about this now that I've been looking over the data. There are, again, like I said, there's good, bad, and ugly with this. I don't like the fact that Shimmering Skies is now pre-selling at the lowest price of a pre-sale, and we haven't seen the bottom. So we actually see today being the lowest price, and it looks like the race to the bottom is still kind of up in the air. We have these people competing now, like this one was a cent. This guy still has 49 of them. Possibly this one will go down lower. The next person actually, posts their numbers. And here's a little bit of a fact too. One of my distributors, so there's 3 distributors, I believe, that right now are the big main distributors for Lorcana. I had one of my numbers Friday from the distributor. Like, I've been asking. They didn't know how many, no information. And today I finally got my allocations from a main distributor, and they were decently high for this set. So I'm thinking that people that don't have, because communication a lot of times with manufacturer to distributor to store can be delayed. Like Magic the Gathering, that's one thing that I do give them credit for, is they have a bit more communication with distribution with store of how many you're getting months ahead. With Lorcana, it's just been up in the air, and you don't know till the very last minute of exactly how many you're getting. So a lot of stores are very weary about pre-selling. So now that I know that they know how many they're actually going to get from distributors, I think that we're going to actually see a lot more of these come on the market, which is going to impact this price even more. Now, again, I don't think that there's a lot of wiggle room for stores to be making any money after, or, once you dip below like the 115, 112, 110 area. So that could be the bottom just out of frustration of not making it. However, again, this is supposed to be a set that is making stores money. This is the pre-sale price. Now, this is also something concerning because this is a like they say, you can't ship it till 8/23/2024. This will be coming in waves. Right now, Lorcana created a policy that the stores can sell in store. I think, yeah, this release. So next Friday, I believe, is when they can sell it in store. However, the official release date isn't until 2023, when the big box stores are supposed to get their supply. So that's their little incentive of like, oh, you can go buy from your local game store. But they're kidding themselves if this doesn't affect what stores are going to be selling at. Otherwise, people will just wait for this. And of course, this is going to give a reference point to what these should go for. So, yeah, this has been one of the lowest. I think this has been the lowest now for a Lorcana set pre-selling at this particular price. So again, people can say, well, look at Magic, look at Pokemon, Kevin, look at Flesh and Blood. I agree that this isn't much of a standout. Like, everything is very, very razor thin now. That's the name of the game. But Lorcana, I think hasn't really been that way. And to see another game kind of fall into this overprinting mode, I think is very concerning for some of Lorcana that doesn't have the backing of a long-term game, like even Flesh and Blood at this point, and especially like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering. So if we look at some of the other sets too, like I said, there's some good data for this. We pull up how many have been sold within the past week. There is quite a few, and it's stayed very consistent between that 135, but you can see now that it's already down to 130, as I'm sure other people have noticed that this is up and they're trying to get in on making, the decent profit. You're making $30 a box at that point. After fees, you're making 20, we'll say 20, 25. That's pretty good. Other than the shipping included, yeah, so they're not making that much off of it. So they're buying them for $100 a box, they're selling for 130. That's profitable at that point. If you're in a cash flow focused business, then yeah, you can just order a ton, get them out the door, make that small percentage, rinse and repeat, and move on to the next product. And that's decent little margins. I'm expecting these ones to come down the most from Floodborne. It all depends on the supply that actually had been, because it still is up in the air. Like, I can see in distribution, like, how you never know totals. You can just see the availability, and it does seem to be quite available for this restocking. We have Inklands too. This one is very concerning. It started to recover a little bit, which was really, Inklands had a lot of the cards that we're seeing play from these tournaments over the weekend. And I think that the supply of Inklands cards in existence is lower than Floodborne. I think a lot of times you can actually look, okay, this box is going for this. There's probably more boxes that were open than Inklands. Other than Inklands did have that big wave. So this is another, it's all up in the air at this point. But now you can see the price is dipping back down. We're already seeing, 108, 110 from these 112 prices, which is where it's at. And I'm expecting this to also come down. And last but not least, this is the really concerning one. We still have not even seen the bottom of Ursa's Return, which was their, the fourth set for Lorcana. And this, at this point, I would assume would be a loss for the stores. And now that this is back in a open reprint, then yeah, I think it spells disaster for this particular set. So again, it is like a tight roping. You can say, well, Magic keeps a lot of standard base sets in stock during their standard rotation. We haven't even seen like a Lorcana rotation. And so, Kevin, shouldn't they be accessible? And I'd agree with you to a point, other than I still think that you cannot compare something that's been around for 30 years and try to have that 30 years of people knowing that this game is going to stick around with these newer type of games where maybe you shouldn't worry about reprints until really later down the road, when it's an issue with accessibility and with an absolute proof that the market does need and can handle these reprints. So that's just some food for thought. I'm kind of worried about Lorcana. Personally, I'm not going to keep a lot of it in stock here. Typically, like Magic, I like to just keep in a lot of stock just in case someone happens to want a particular box. I have it. Like, that's the worst thing as a store, is not having a particular product. I mean, it's a missed sale at that point. Definitely not completely bearish of the game. There were great signs over the weekend. Like, I could dive more into the sales data for cards. And like I said, with booster boxes, you can click on all of these, and they've had, you know, multiple boxes sold per day, which is right on par with like Magic at this point. So there are some good news for Lorcana, but all in all, I'd be very cautious about Lorcana. We have a lot of competitors coming up. Sorcery is having a set number 2, which is a very, very popular game. Star Wars Unlimited is still doing strong. One Piece is going through its own little reprint hell right now, which is adding a lot of supply and accessibility into the game. We have a card called Equestrials coming out. We have something, I can't remember, Asmodee. They're like doing a cutesy type TCG that's supposed to be going to be the best thing since sliced bread. Then I better order it right now. I can't even remember the game, but there are so many TCGs that are going to end up on the market that I think are going to compete with Lorcana, and I think they're going to compete with Lorcana more so than they do with something like Magic the Gathering that just has that massive brand recognition and player base. That they're not going to be as affected as, you know, these new one-hit wonder card games that continue to come out. So anyway, there's my 2 cents for Lorcana. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you find this useful, definitely give it a like and a subscribe. And if you think that this Patreon is a good fit and you want to get in on this action for these type of prices, definitely come and check it out. Like I said, this is, at this point, our main operation is trying to, you know, save everyone people money and serve the community here. We hope you enjoyed this video, Kevin with the Rogue Market. Thanks for watching.